Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only podcast in the world that looks at cycling purely from an aesthetic standpoint. We're also a cycling culture podcast now as well. So welcome to Cycling Fashion Week. Welcome Warren, welcome Tony, my regular co-hosts. And as always, the podcast is brought to you by leclub.cc. Leclub.cc is your go-to destination for the season's hottest, best premium cycling apparel. They've got brands like MAP, Universal Colors, Fingers Crossed, Quack, Sweet Protection. They've got it all. They've got the best coffee. They continue to launch new brands on the website. They launched Albion recently, brand new online experience, fast shipping, personalized shipping, little notes. They're the nicest people. And most importantly, if you use the code Fashion Week 15, tell them Alex, Warren, and Tony sent you. You get 15% off your order. Check it out. Warren and Tony, how's it going this week?
It's good. I will not confirm or deny that we may be possibly in Montreal sometime this summer to record live at Le Club, but we'll no confirming or denying, but that's a possibility.
And we're not gonna reveal the time at which this would be happening, just for fear of having capacity limits breached within the Le Club at that point. Tony's also going to the UK next week, or actually, we're recording this the week before, so he is going to the UK this week. So for our UK listeners, Tony is going to be in the United Kingdom. How you feel about that, Tony?
I'm pretty excited. I have a special thing that I don't know if I'll get a chance to really take any media of it, but for me, with one of our favorite brands out of the UK, that I'm going to go visit their atelier, their studio. It should be fun. No bikes, no time for bikes, unfortunately. But I think I'll go check out the Rafa Clubhouse. I'm staying not too far from it.
It's unfortunate. I was hoping for some content from Tony from the Yorkshire Dales, wearing spats, riding in the rain, cursing in a Northern England accent. I was hoping for Tony to post some of that content on Instagram, but it's not going to happen, it seems.
Can you do a live review of the Rafa Clubhouse? Just take a mic and just walk around, record it. Don't tell them you're doing it. Just do it and see what happens.
I mean, I think with the way people, when you see influencers in the wild and social media and stuff, they would, at that point, that would be tame compared to probably what some weirdos are doing when they need to make content and stuff. So I don't even know if anybody would flinch, but yeah, I could do that. I could walk around. I mean, maybe,
You're not going to do it, so we shouldn't let our listeners think that.
No, I'm definitely not going to do it. Every time I take a trip, there's about, 12 hours left in the trip, and I go, shit, I haven't taken a picture yet. And I find some monument to take one picture next to sort of remind myself. But I'm not really a content generator besides this wonderful podcast.
Speaking of content generators, guys, I feel like we should debrief our Dustin Klein interview from 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was pretty interesting. I would say the interview took some unexpected turns and elicited several comments on our social media feed. So one thing I want to say, a lot of people said, "Oh, it seems like Dustin disagreed with you." Some people even said Dustin owned us, or he dunked on us by shattering our rules. So I just want to make it clear to our listeners that this was all in good fun, and the strict rule following is returning to Cycling Fashion Week this week. We maybe strayed a little bit from our own self-imposed rules.
I caved. Honestly, that's the reality of it, is that I caved. I think Warren caved. Alex, you held ground for a bit. I don't, I mean, he was.
I definitely caved.
Dustin, I defended the wall. Yeah,
Dustin's a big personality, and he really sort of kicked it up a notch and threw us off our game, which I don't like. But we're probably going to have him back on. We're going to come back stronger. With a little more knowledge, a little more experience. Caved in on something we should have held our ground on it. We apologize to our listeners, but at the same time, we're super excited about having Dustin, having some different opinions. We don't want this to become an echo chamber.
We've already talked to him about him coming on again, but little does he know it'll be for revenge.
Well, I mean, I think it was good to have someone bringing a different perspective on cycling style and just cycling in general. And as Tony said, we're not trying to have guests that always agree with us on everything and share our entire
Brandt
philosophy.
Sorenson, come on, Brandt Sorenson.
Yeah, we've invited Brandt Sorenson. We're looking forward to the interview, but
he's busy.
Really had much of a response so far. Okay, this week, big episode. As always, we've got another interview this week. Tony's going to the UK. So speaking of the UK, we are interviewing Inge Snook van de Hoek and Will Hurd from the United Kingdom brand Universal Colors. They'll be coming on the podcast to tell us about their story, their philosophy, what they do, where they come from, what's behind the brand overall. So we have a long conversation with Inge and Will from Universal Color. Brand that's been, I would say, on the up and up over the last few years since they launched. They've been pretty popular. So I'm sure our listeners are going to be enjoying that interview that's coming later on the podcast. Okay, before we go to the Universal Color interview, we're going to do our regular news releases segment where we look at new stuff that came out in the world of cycling style. And we're going to give our takes, our opinions on a few products that came out. So the first one that we're going to talk about today is the recent release by the Swiss brand Assos, famous for Assos men and for actually having been around for a very long time making high quality cycling apparel. So Assos released something in collaboration with Alfa Romeo Formula One team Orlen, and they announced a new deal where the two brands are sort of doing a joint venture, or they're teaming up. And they say that it's powered by their shared commitment to precision engineering and the advancement of technology. So, Assos kind of jumping on the bandwagon of Formula One engineering innovation, and they're launching a kit. They're launching a jersey, and essentially, it's just basically a jersey. It's black. It's got some white. It's got some red. It's got some pink. It's got some geometric sort of rectangle patterns on it. They claim that it's very high end. It's very technical overall, and that's kind of all there is to it. Not much else to say. From my perspective, it's pretty decent. It's an interesting looking jersey, but guys, what did you think about it overall?
I mean, it's not something I would wear, but I actually don't hate it considering it's Assos. But I like jerseys that kind of take, or designs in general, that sort of take the idea of, what it's inspired by without being so in your face. I think they've done a really good job with this, right? Alfa Romeo, they've used the sort of colors, and they anyone who's an F1 fan, which right now is literally everybody, they can see it right away and see Alfa Romeo in it without like literally plopping a picture of the car on it or something, which I find a lot of times in design when you're doing collaboration or you're trying to evoke some sort of image. Sometimes people are like a little too obvious. So this is like a little more nuanced, but still definitely gives an Alfa Romeo feel. Overall, it's fine. I think if I saw someone on it, I wouldn't make any live commentary on what they were doing, but it's not for me.
I think we should also acknowledge, I know there was a long press release talking about performance fusion, blah, 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 whatever. Alex, you read it. But I think there's a missing connection here, which is Valtteri Bottas. Tony, how do I say that?
Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas is a cyclist, as well as he's a driver on the Alfa Romeo F1 team, but he's also a cyclist. He is dating, I believe,
Tiffany Cromwell.
Yeah, so pro cyclist Tiffany Cromwell. He's done a bunch of gravel races in the States this year. He's actually, our friends over at Cycling Tips had an article about it. He's launching his own gravel race in Finland. He's doing it in partnership with an existing one called SBT Gravel in the States. I actually don't know that one. So it's Finland Gravel, but it's called FNLD Gravel, GRVL. So I think there's undeniably a connection there, is he might be having input here. I don't know. Also, I just want to note that if you're going to host a gravel race in Finland and you're not calling it the finish line, you are being lazy, because that's a great name. In terms of the actual kit itself, I don't think I have much to add. For Assos, not bad. The Assos logo ruins it. I don't mind stripy stripes.
I love this for a few reasons. Number one, it's great for dads. The Venn diagram of dads who are into cycling and Formula One, I think, is very common. I think that intersection of the Venn diagram, a lot of kind of out of shape dads out there that are into Formula One, but also kind of into the idea of cycling as well. I think that there's something there. And I think Assos has captured this with the collaboration with Alfa Romeo. Other reason why I like this, Formula One in and of itself is very Euro trash. There's a Euro trash element to Formula One. The Grand Prix de Monaco, like the white linen, the flashy nature of it. It's just very, very Euro, like jet set overall. And again, the Venn diagram of Euro trash with Assos, I think is just perfect. The intersection there works very well. I'm known as a Euro trash fanboy. I love this stuff. So I think Assos really nailed it there.
You've got the F1 coming up in Montreal this weekend, and that is the ultimate in like faux Euro trash of the St. Leonard Italians coming down to the city to sort of parade their fourth generation Italianness.
Actually, last weekend was the Formula One, since we're recording this the week before. But yes, that is coming to Montreal. I ride my bike on the Montreal Formula One track, pristine pavement, very fast riding overall. So I think Assos really nailed the connection between Formula One and cycling. And as Tony said, a lot of the drivers of Formula One are into cycling. They need to have very good cardio. They tend to do that. And it's been going back, a long time. In the 1980s and 90s, Alain Prost was a big cyclist. I think he's done some stuff with Richard Mille and maybe even Rafa as well. I can't remember. But anyway, big connection there. I think Assos nailed it in the Euro trash element. Okay, the next item we are going to talk about. Should I talk about the big mountain bike conspiracy right away or let Warren do it? La Passione released the MTB Collection, designed to experience the roughest terrains. And I'm not talking about gravel. I'm talking about straight up mountain bikes. So they're releasing gear for the wide open spaces, the unbeaten roads, climbing through the woods, all that good mountain bike stuff. They've got the Stone Collection, the Leaf Collection, and the whole thing. They've got a slightly more roady looking mountain bike kit. When I say roady, I mean it's more fitted. It could almost pass like a pair of road or gravel bibs and jerseys as well. And they've got the Leaf Collection, which is your typical baggy mountain bike stuff with the baggy shorts, the baggy t-shirts, and the whole kind of mountain bike stuff that I'm absolutely not into. I guess I'll give my take right away before Warren goes to the big mountain bike conspiracy, but I'm not going to comment on the Leaf, the baggy stuff, because you already know my take. I mean, I just praised Assos for its Euro trashness. I certainly won't be praising La Passione for its kind of Colorado bagginess here. But what's interesting in the I believe the Stone Collection, which is the one that looks a little bit more like road, is they managed to actually make a mountain bike kit that looked more like road, but still make me hate it, because they did something in the design of the jersey, which is probably the thing I hate the most in a cycling jersey. And it's when the color of the sleeves doesn't match the color of the body. And so therefore it looks like you're wearing a sleeveless jersey with another t-shirt underneath or another jersey underneath, which I think is incredibly ugly. I really hate when the sleeves are not of the same color as the jersey. It's just something that my eyes hurt when I look at this, because it looks like you're wearing a vest with the jersey under, which is fine, but it's like a trompe-l'oeil, as we say in French, and I really, really hate that. They claim they've got very good technical features on this. It's actually maybe a knock on La Passione, is that, look, when they came into the marketplace, I thought, they started making block color kit, which everyone is making now. Were they early in doing that? I don't know, but they kind of kept it simple at the beginning, and they sort of provided that entry point into relatively affordable, I would say, compared to other brands, cycling gear for maybe new riders. Kept it really simple with block colors and everything. It gets a little boring over time, but what I found with the few pieces I own from La Passione is the quality hasn't always held up in my case, especially of the jerseys. I find they stretch a lot. So a little skeptical of that release, but maybe they're better on the baggy side. Warren, what do you got on this?
I'll first say I agree with you on the quality of the La Passione jersey that I have. It has not held up super great. It has stretched. The pockets have gotten pretty saggy. The bibs have held up great, and I still maintain those are some of my favorite bibs.
Yeah, I agree. The bibs are good. I agree with you. Mine have generally held up well, but yeah, the jerseys that just tend to stretch a lot.
But in terms of this actual collection, so I disagree with you about the sleeve thing, because the different colored sleeves to the body actually reminds me of like raglan t-shirt, sort of like baseball style. I'm a baseball fan. I don't mind it. But on this jersey, they seem to have taken the color of the sleeves and made it go under the armpit. And I don't know if I'm too lazy to really look. Oh no, it does look like the armpit area it matches the color sleeve and it's got mesh. And I think they've done that is for more venting because we all know mountain bikers smell.
Are mountain bikers known to smell more than roadies?
No, I'm saying they do now.
They smell like patchouli, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, that's their own.
exactly.
That's its own type
They
of
smell like weed as well.
Weed and patchouli. And so some people, it's not for me, but some people like it.
That's a knock against it. But overall, like the Stone collection, which is basically just road kit with like an extra meshy pocket on the back. Sure, why not? Like I think we've said it before, if you're going to ride gravel or ride mountain bike, wear skin tight Lycra kit because it looks cool. And then the bibs, I don't know. I don't even know if they're cargo bibs, which is kind of funny. And then the baggy stuff, yeah, it's not worth.
You're not into that, Warren? I thought you were into the baggy stuff.
No, why would?
Because you love mountain bike, gravel, and all that stuff.
No, I don't. Why? Where is this coming from? I've never professed to like that on this podcast. It's like a dream you've made up, a story you've tried to create about me that's just simply not true. I don't own a mountain bike.
Do you have plans of ever owning one?
Maybe. But I race cyclocross does not make me a mountain biker.
So it's been denied officially on the podcast. Never believe a rumor until it's been denied. Warren is not a mountain bike guy.
Anyway, the baggy stuff sucks. If you're going to mountain bike, wear the tight stuff.
I'm sort of with you, Alex, right, on the Euro trash fandom, and mountain bike just elicits far too much boulder for me. Like, I get it. People like all sorts of cycling and it blah blah blah. It's all this stuff, but I just can't get into it. Like, I don't care what the kit looks like. The fact that it's geared towards mountain biking just kind of like annoys me, which is not necessarily fair, but it's also just like the way it is. Like, I just love cycling from that sort of espresso at the cafe. Even though you're wearing a helmet, you're like doing your hair like Woot does before the ride and stuff. I just see this big mountain bike creeping in and everyone's saying you gotta do it. I have no interest in it. I don't really see the appeal personally. I like gravel. We've talked about this, and gravel from a road perspective. I even think cyclocross is kind of fun, something to keep stagnation, but mountain biking is just, I'm so uninterested in it. I can't even make a comment on the collection, the fact that it's called the MTB. And once I see that, I zone out.
Okay, for our next segment, we welcome distinguished guests on the podcast today. We are going to be speaking to Will Hurd, who is the creative lead, and to Inge Snoek van de Hoek, who is the brand marketing manager for Universal Colors, a British brand that has been on the rise in the last few years. I'm sure all of our listeners have heard about Universal Colors. They've maybe been a little bit less present in our part of the world in North America, but certainly over in Europe. Many people have worn their kit and have heard about it. And so we're very fortunate today to welcome Will Hurd and Inge Snoek van de Hoek to talk about the brand and Universal Colors more generally. We're going to talk about their design philosophy, their history, where they're going, and what's next for the brand, as well as just general trends in cycling fashion. Will and Inge, welcome to Cycling Fashion Week.
Hey guys,
Thank
how you
you.
doing?
So I have a question for the general. We like to call people our good friend when we kind of get to know people, when we interview them a little bit. Maybe we have some messages and stuff like that. Would you guys say that you're our good friend yet? Like, I feel like we haven't established a hard and fast rule on when we start to call someone our good friend. And so you're first on the podcast. It's the first time we're seeing your face, but we've done a little bit of emailing. Is it our good friend Universal Colors, or we still got to ease our way into that?
You've all got pretty friendly looking faces, so I think we can.
Someone who can pronounce Inge Snoek van der Hoek, right? Off the cuff like that, I think is a good friend.
I'm a friend to the Dutch people.
Yeah.
So Inge and Will, obviously we've been following the brand, I would say from afar mostly, because again, we're based in North America. You guys are based in the United Kingdom. And I guess the brand has been a little bit less present here over the last several years. as you launched, but we've been following from afar, following the rise of the brand on social media and on the internet. So it'd be interesting to hear from from both of you. Tell us about how the brand got started, what led you to get involved with Universal Colors. What was the original idea at the start? What did you feel was missing in the market? And if you could just describe that a little bit.
I think, starting Universal Colors, I think the very first thing we wanted to do is really create a brand set on values. That's one of the first things we set out to do. And then, we came together as a small team of keen cyclists, and we said, okay, well, let's draw up what we believe in and what we want this brand to be. I think those were the very starting points for Universal Colors. And I think our brand pillars are still something that we really live and breathe. Values such as being progressive, being transparent, being honest, being inclusive, and also responsible, and really almost use those values as a funnel for everything we do. I think that's how things started, and that's where they're going. Maybe, Will, you can also...
We also launched at the height of the pandemic, which had its troubles. So yeah, we're coming up to our second birthday. It's been an incredible journey so far, and hence the reason why possibly we've gone under the radar a little bit initially, because we just really didn't have the opportunity to engage with our customers. And it's been a bit of a battle, but I think the response in which we've had has been just like seriously, it's been almost overwhelming. It's really encouraging to see and actually hear what our customers' feedback is, because that's a huge value to us. Setting out to be progressive from the get-go, having the feedback from our customers in order to better ourselves and improve on product and the way in which we create the conversations that we sort of set out upon ourselves.
So you guys said that you were keen cyclists. Could you give us a little bit of background about your we don't have to call them careers, but your foray into cycling, and maybe you guys, were professionals that we didn't know about, or just your recreational kind of what got you into cycling and what sort of led you to want to work in the industry?
And please don't tell us that you come from the skateboarding world, because that's literally what everyone says.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
We're hoping for a different answer this time around.
There was not a single bit of clean tarmac where I grew up, so there was no skating for me.
Perfect.
I grew up right in the middle, smack in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors. So I was like a mountain biker from the get-go. To be honest, it wasn't until I came down to London, about 15 years ago, and actually knew what a road bike was. A bit of a scary thought to even consider putting anything remotely tight on. It was mountain biking for me. Came down to London and I studied design at university and realised that there wasn't a huge amount of mountain biking to be done in London. So I fell in love with road cycling and just the marriage of the two things, cycling and design, just sort of forged my career.
What about you, Inge?
Yeah, so basically, obviously, I was born and raised in Holland, and that almost automatically puts you on a bike. This is the interesting thing, and that's one of the things when I moved to London as a student some 12 years ago, and one thing that was kind of striking and fascinating to me was that something that's so normal, in Holland, like jumping on your bike, commuting from A to B, you're without a helmet, everything's free and the birds are chirping. When I came to London, it was a completely different cycling culture to find myself in. And coming to cycling, first of all, as kind of like a mode of transport, as for all Dutch people. But then actually when I saw people riding in London on their road bikes and everybody was commuting in Lycra and stuff, I was like, that seems interesting. It doesn't seem very logical, but okay, I'll take it. And from there, actually, my love for the cycling as a sport also grew in that sense, and kind of it just take from there, and got into a bit of triathlon, and cycling does something still for me. It's like it's the commute, the A to B, the kind of on your own feet and just going somewhere, but then also just challenging yourself on an amazing weekend ride is how it got me, basically.
See, that's interesting for me, because I like that you mentioned the Dutch experience there of commuting, and for sure Dutch bikes are known as commuter bikes overall. And I personally don't believe in commuting in cycling kit. I think that you should be wearing your regular clothes when you're commuting. You should have a different bike than your road bike. Like, to me, the sport aspect of road cycling is completely separate from the commuting aspect, which is purely utilitarian.
So I was going to ask because, and Inge can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that in the Netherlands, they have sort of two terms for cycling. I don't know that they actually are in Dutch, but sort of cycling meaning the sport version, and then the one that sort of refers to commuting meaning assisted walking. So the idea is that, I don't know if that's a direct translation, but that's sort of what I heard. And that's kind of what I've been trying to push in Toronto, the idea that you can ride your bike and everyone says, I'm going to be too sweaty. I'm going to be this, to say, no, you buy a nice upright bike and you ride casually, right? You've
Exactly.
got chain guards to keep your pants clean and stuff. Like the attitude around Dutch commuting is one that just is almost a completely separate style of riding a bike than riding a road bike for sport.
I mean, I've got a Brompton, so that's my commuter.
Well, our good friend David Millar is always trying to get me on a Brompton. So
Yeah.
See in London people commuting, doing their 3 mile commute, wearing a heart rate monitor, pushing the watch.
Yeah.
Power meter.
We have that in Toronto too. Like there's a really long bike path on the lake. Then I'll see people, they're riding maybe 5-6 kilometers and they're like fully kitted out. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway.
This is it. It's exactly like, and like you said, that's exactly it. It's fietsen and wielrennen. But that's exactly like you say. Fietsen is just, your kind of normal riding, and then wielrennen actually means wheel run, like wheel running, which is actually the sport. So I still also swear by that. So when I cycle into work in offices and things like that, I won't be seen in lycra.
And it's interesting because you are a cycling kit brand, so all else equal, presumably you would like to sell more kit to people. We are a show about cycling kit, but we have that separation in our mind about this is for commuting, this is for sports. They are kept entirely separate.
And also for the UK listeners out there, Pashley is a UK brand that makes a sort of what I would call a Dutch style bike, but they're probably obviously very popular. And they are some of those beautiful steel commuter bikes with built-in chain guards and stuff. So people need to just change their bike purchasing. It's good to have multiple bikes. So you got your beautiful road bike, as long as it's not, a BMC or Cervelo or something.
Although you have to be absolutely ripped to lift one of those things up and down your staircase if you live in a flat.
So Will, you said something earlier I thought was interesting. You said the brand was launched right in the middle of the pandemic. Walk us through that a little bit, because I could see how that had a good side and a bad side. The good side being that demand for goods exploded during the pandemic. Demand for goods that are tied to outdoors activities such as cycling went into an absolute bull market at that time. Things completely blew up. But at the same time, you were also facing difficulties in terms of supply chain, obtaining product. And so walk us a little bit through the story of starting a brand during the pandemic and how things evolved since then.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting subject, actually, although it feels like an age ago now. We were in a really good position with the product. We've got a really big collection sort of built up. Unfortunately, one of the sort of key components for each of our garments weren't able to supply us the goods. So, and each of these these components were fitted into every single product that we had. So we were forced by definition to sort of hold fire. To the point in which we would have launched sort of end of the summer. So with that in mind, we as a team decided, okay, like let's just sit back, take stock, and like go again for next summer, for spring summer 21. But then we quickly found that there was a huge demand for people getting out on their bikes, wanting new kit. Despite the fact that we knew that we were going to be coming to the season super late, we decided to push it out. We didn't really put anything in the way of marketing behind it. We decided just to put it out there, see what the response was. And as I said previously, it was just like, it was super overwhelming, the response that we got. And we quickly realized that we'd really sort of hit a sweet spot. Going back to the pillars of the brand, how we'd sort of built the narrative it really hit a bit of a sweet spot. And it was lovely to have people come back to us and engage with the conversations that we were having. And alongside that, we were able to deliver some fantastic products.
You guys mentioned you're only coming up on your second birthday. You're pretty new to the market. Sort of the last 10 years, it's the market sort of exploded. And I noticed when we talked to other brands, And we have sort of no qualms about even when we're talking to other brands, mentioning brand names and stuff. They always sort of refer to it as our competitors, or sort of are very tentative to mention another brand. And I guess I'm kind of interested in what I don't know if it's the community, the sort of, market where there's so many brands now. Is there any connection between you, or is it just a dog eat dog world? Don't mention MAP or Passione or Mal. I'm going to mention it here because that's kind of what we do, but don't mention those brands. We're the only brand. Or do you connect with these? Is there any sort of like community around these brands? Because you're doing similar stuff, so you're obviously trying to make as much money and sell, but you can feed off each other as well. There's a positive if you guys are sort of friendly with someone else.
I think starting with Rafa is a really interesting subject. I mean, as we're all aware, they came in as the disruptors and really shook things up. And if it wasn't for the likes of Rafa, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, because they really were a driving force in like making cycling clothing like beautiful.
We wouldn't have this podcast.
Exactly. So
Yeah, exactly.
hats off to those guys. But I think that it's interesting that you use the word competitors, because I think by definition, I guess they are competitors, but I don't think we as a brand see them as competitors as in a typical format. I think all brands, they inspire like what we do as a brand, like looking at ways in which we can challenge ourselves in a slightly different format. The things in which we're doing, we would like to think that if we are being progressive in a certain way, that they look to us and think to ourselves, they can challenge themselves. And from the point of view of things like sustainability or these things, like we don't want to really come up with and devise like new ways of working and like keep them to ourselves. We'd like to think that even if we did make these small changes, the other brands in the market will also make these progressive steps, and we can sort of forge this, as you said, this community. And I go to a number of different trade shows, one of which is absolutely love it. It's called Performance Days in Munich, and it happens twice a year, and it's a technical fabric fair. And you'll see all these different brands and all their colleagues sort of milling around, and it's lovely, because at the end of the day, we'll all get together and we'll just chat, and it's really engaging to see what they're doing, and there isn't that sort of competitive nature in which possibly there is perceived, I guess.
Have you ever had direct contacts with people at other brands?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's a really nice little community, because I was there a couple of weeks ago, and there were a bunch of guys, some guys from Rafa there as well, and it's just really cool. And they're just basically to geek out on fabric, so it's just a great opportunity to share ideas.
It sounds like there's a lot of positive community. Have you run into sort of any negative interaction with other brands?
Yeah, it was interesting. I listened to your podcast a couple of weeks ago on the Brandt Sorenson conversation, and this guy has reached out to me on numerous occasions, claiming there's some copying going on, which is just an absolute.
Well, that makes you part of the club then, because it seems like every brand has received the
memo.
Something.
Yeah.
He's called out Passione or Mal. He's called out MAP. I think he's called out Attacker. So I mean, and those are
I think it's kind of a badge of honor at this point.
He flies into my DMs every so often, just claiming that I've copied his green color, and you're like, man, just chill out.
Very much smaller scale but I bought a custom bike, and I got to choose the paint colors, and there was a photo of it when it got shipped to the shop, and this guy in the sort of Toronto cycling community had a similar bike, and he also accused me of stealing it. And then every other person was like, it's a British racing green bike, like it's one of the most famous greens of all time. Like that's the thing with the Brandt Sorenson, right? Is that like people do steal designs, you see it, but he's like has like a marigold jersey, and then someone else comes out with like, a slightly different yellow, and he's like, "You've stolen it from me," and you're like, "I'm sorry, but yellow shirts have been around for I'm pretty sure."
Although Tony, if someone else ever talks about cycling kit in a podcast somewhere, you can be sure that I'm going to be up in those DMs, just smashing the keyboard.
If we get a rip off,
I'm going to get my lawyer on these people ASAP.
Well, what happens if it's GCN who like steals our idea, right? Like, and then they've got like big money. I'm
going to sue them into oblivion.
Yeah, there'll be no more GCN plus race, because we'll just take everything they've got for our.
We invented the discussion of cycling kit, talking about kit. We invented that.
Yeah,
so, first ones ever.
So let's talk about the design ethos of Universal Colors, because what really characterizes the brand, I find, is that minimal aesthetic, block colors, the lettering, which which again is pretty minimal, using classic typefaces overall. Describe a little bit your approach to the design aspect of things over at Universal Colors.
So yeah, I mean, when we came to the table with what we wanted the brand to look like, I think the word mark and the logo mark really sort of characterised the sort of contemporary, minimalist, modern approach that we wanted to sort of follow through into the product itself. And yeah, I mean, I'm inspired by all different things, but I mean, being in London is like an absolute melting pot for things going on, and the inspiration that comes out, it just forged from being and living and breathing in the city is just it's amazing. From the point of view of like fashion, I think some of the most interesting designers are coming out of London at the moment.
I just want to ask, so on the minimalistic design aspect of things, is this core to who you are as a brand, or do you see yourselves potentially evolving into something else eventually? Because in some cases, the brands will say, no, that is really who we are. We don't like going into more maximalist designs. But in some cases, people are saying, that's kind of what we're interested in right now. It's where we are at this particular evolution of the brand, but we could see it evolve into something else eventually.
So we do an array of designs, and I think yes, we definitely do fit into that minimalist, like core colors. But then we also have our Spectrum collection as well, which is built around print, and we use that as an opportunity for riders to sort of to express themselves in a slightly more vibrant way. Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity for us to be doing like unique print design in the future. I don't think necessarily we want to be that brand that just becomes the beautiful colors with minimalist branding on.
Actually, I remember when I first discovered your brand, I think it was Instagram. I don't know, somebody sharing it. I don't even remember, but I actually think the first piece I noticed was a gilet that was like a tie-dye look or something like that. And that was the first thing that caught my eye because I just hadn't seen something quite like that.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because it's probably actually been our most successful product. And I think without that product, I don't think it would necessarily be where we are today. Well, I went to Performance Days and we were looking for a packable fabric that would work well for a gilet. I stumbled across this like iridescent fabric, ripstop fabric, super lightweight, and we were like, just thought to ourselves, this would just look like absolutely sick if we could turn this into an outerwear piece. And I think we were quite nervous about going too big on the numbers, so I think we only started with like 100 pieces, and I think within the first week or two we'd almost close to sold out. So we were like, wow, this is a proper magpie piece. And I think there's a really interesting conversation around that as well, because we bought into waste fabric that another brand had used. I don't even know who had used it in the previous, probably nowhere related to cycling, I would imagine. So we bought into this fabric, which potentially could have gone to landfill. It was a really satisfying experience being able to find a fabric which ultimately led to the growth of the brand, but then also having a really nice sustainable story to sit behind it as well.
I wanted to ask about that sustainability angle because we got some Universal Colors kit and I noticed on the tags, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it said like 100% recycled materials. And I'll be honest, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, is this going to be as good as like some of the performance stuff? And I actually found it to feel really nice and like soft on the skin. I was kind of imagining I was going to be like, wrapping myself in like tinfoil or something like that, but it was actually it actually feels really nice on the skin. So maybe just tell us a bit more about your approach to incorporating like waste materials or your approach to sustainability.
Yeah, I could speak forever and a day on this, so to chop me out at some point. Well, first of all, like on our hang tags, I don't think we've actually got a product which actually lists that's 100% sustainable. Recycled materials, because I don't think that even exists at the moment.
Right.
But I think what's really interesting, the conversation here is talking about what is sustainability. And I think there's so many different pillars that help forge what is a sustainable brand. And I say sustainable like in inverted commas, because by definition, we're a commercial business that wants to push product out and sell products. So
thank you for at least admitting that, because we understand. I mean, sustainability has a level to it. There's still commerce involved. It's never going to be 100%. And the goal for all companies should be to do their best. But some companies don't seem to acknowledge that it just in a sort of in a way, they're still a little bit, they can't be as sort of altruistic as they think they are. So I personally appreciate you understanding that you should focus on sustainability and pushing it forward, but you're still a commercial product that's going to go out into the world.
This comes down to like our honest and transparent pillars. I think we as a brand want to be able to do whatever we can with what's in the market, but also lead the conversation about why we're making these decisions. Unfortunately, we're in a position where actually the most sustainable thing you could do is pull out your 15-year-old pair of Castelli bib shorts, baggy bib shorts from 15 years ago, because that is the most sustainable solution. But we've got to be realistic. People want to buy a new, interesting product. Yes, of course, you can choose like recycled fabrics, but I think there's a lot more that's involved. It's about looking at durability of product, how the product is made. Are we producing it with a good manufacturer that will enable longevity? It's all very well doing all these things, but I think it's having the conversation and speaking to our customers and saying to them, yes, of course you can buy 100% recycled bib shorts or whatever you might think they might be, but really, are they buying the best product, and are they going to be buying a product that will last them for the next 2-3 years?
I think that's a very interesting point, because I mean, I work in architecture, and they always say that the most sustainable building is a building that exists.
Yeah.
Right, because it takes it. So I mean, then that kind of extends to any product. But you're right, people want new stuff. It's sort of styles change, but I mean, that's kind of both from a design perspective, like you said, the emotional connection, where hopefully people will love the look of their piece for a long time and not sort of be keeping up with fast fashion, as well as the quality of the product, so that it's not wearing out. I kind of want to talk to you about sort of maybe perception of price point, because you guys are a little bit lower than some of your competitors, some of your community members that sort of do a similar style. It's good. I mean, and I'm always trying to look for, affordable kit, and I think that that's a good thing. But does sometimes that come off as a perception that maybe you're actually cheaper than you are in terms of quality? Is sometimes they're an interesting sort of marketing thing where you want to be in an affordable luxury price point, but
or is this a deliberate decision? Because you said at the start that you want to be progressive and inclusive. Is this your way of making sure that more people can afford your stuff?
I guess first and foremost, we as a brand will never compromise on performance. That's sort of where we're at. And I think going back to the sustainability conversation, the sustainable solution doesn't perform, we won't opt to go for it. So everything that we produce is like really focused on performance. And I think it's interesting that you sort of compare us to other brands' price points, but I think it was a very keen decision for us to go in at a slightly cheaper price point. But by no means does that mean we're skimping on the quality of the product. We're making almost exclusively out of a factory in Lithuania, which arguably is probably one of the best in the world for technical performance wear. And I mean, when it comes to the bill of materials, I get quite often struck down because I end up choosing like the most expensive materials on the market. For bib short fabric, you're talking anywhere between sort of $5 to $10 a meter for warp knit fabric. And for our chroma bib shorts, we're straight honest, we're talking 20 plus bucks per meter on the fabric. Yeah, I think I'd really encourage people to like check the product out and just see how it compares, and a lot of attention to detail goes into the product. And within the products we make, every single bit of detail is really heavily considered.
We noticed when looking at the current collections that the color palettes are very similar for the men's kits and for the women's kits. Is this a deliberate decision on your part as part of the overall kind of inclusivity mantra, or did it just kind of happen by accident?
One thing that again we came, to the table with as a brand was that very often in cycling kits, it's kind of like, oh my god, like as a woman, I really love in certain ranges like what would be offered on men's colorways and vice versa. And this is one thing that we really felt like that would be so neat to introduce, right? This kind of gender parity, equal choice for men and women. Will, from a design point, looked at a color palette that could be complementary to both genders. And we really felt like, why actually, isn't that there? Because so often, I don't know if you guys recognize yourself in that, but it would be like, oh, hey, I love that pink, but why does it only come in women's? I think these things are yeah, are so interesting. And one of the things that I do also think created a differentiation point for the brand, and obviously, the name Universal Colors also, it all ties together in that way as well. And equally with the introduction of some of the unisex pieces, it's again one of these things where the gender parity conversation is just an important one to have, especially also very much appreciated by women within cycling. To also, again, as a brand, we're not even 2 years in the market. I think one other thing that's really cool to highlight is that we came to the market also immediately with a great offering for women. Sometimes the women's range can be a bit of an afterthought for some
Yeah.
brands within cycling, and we immediately came with that. And together with our colleague Sophie on product development, she really looked as well as like what is important, for example, for a women's bib. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was like, okay, they need to be pulled to pee, because very often, when you're on a cycling event, you need to completely strip down. It's like, what am I doing? It's like, oh my God, I just want to be able to just pull them down, do a wee, and that's it.
Inge, when you mentioned that, it reminds me of a very famous moment with your fellow Dutchman, Tom Dumoulin, in the ditch at the Giro.
Yeah.
Was it 5 years ago? I can't remember, but
Yes, yes.
I don't think he was using a Universal Colors bib.
Oh yeah, I think is he not called like Poo-moulin at in the meantime?
I mean, often we say when you've got to, stop for a nature break, you say, "Oh, I've got to do a Dumoulin." So he's
That's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah. On that topic, it's just been amazing to see, and I think also when it comes to gender splits within people that are, attracted to the brand, it's actually much more equal. Kind of split between men and women that are attracted to the brand, and I think that's a super positive thing.
When we actually put the numbers in, we heavily, well, as you would normally with a cycling clothing brand, just by definition of the market, we weighted it heavily towards to men, and it transpires that was a mistake, because we're now selling out of all the women's stuff.
I was going to say the first few times I saw Universal Colors kit in the wild in Toronto was on women, actually.
Yeah.
And even still, but it was like, I looked at it, it was like, oh, that's a nice kit. So it was also nice to be able to go on the website. We're like, oh, I could get that too in like.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'd like the opportunity to be doing more unisex pieces, but there's the technical difficulty with that, especially with like form-fitting kit. I think if you were doing like just more of a casual range of products, I think the idea of doing like unisex pieces is easier to do because it drapes over the body better. But I think by definition, the technical product has to like be designed specifically for each individual user. So
we do these interviews because we want to seem like professional journalists, and we're bringing out we're bringing information to the masses about these different brands that people are interested in. But the reality is, I won't speak for the other two, but I do it to get information that I want to have personally.
Sure.
And so we've spoken about this on another episode about ambassadors, brand ambassadors. We've sort of questioned the point, what their value is. So I want to know, do you guys use brand ambassadors? If you don't yet, or you're gonna, do you see a great value in brand ambassadors? If there's someone out there who says, I need to be a brand ambassador, it's my whole cycling life, I already stop every ride 4 times for pictures. What are you looking for in someone's social media if you were going to offer them an opportunity to be a brand ambassador?
Tony, my daughter's 2 years old. She already wants to be a brand ambassador when she grows up.
No more firefighter or policeman.
She says she sees my nice kit and she's like, I want some of that too.
That's so funny. No, I really appreciate the question, and it's to be really honest with you, it's one of these things that, yes, of course, and especially in a way, especially launching the brand in the midst of a pandemic, there were challenges in terms of, how do you create brand awareness, and a lot of the things that we've done from the start, as well as work with social media or digital channels, because that was the way to get on that radar. I think what I would say is that we're very young still, and one of the things that we do feel as a team as well is that we approach everything very considerately. If we operate by certain brand values, then the people that we work with on that level also need to, kind of live and breathe those values, because essentially they are our brand representatives, right? So there are different things that come into play with that. And eventually what we'll be looking for our ambassador program, and we do work with some people currently, is to also kind of, not only is it important for someone to, let's say, showcase the clothing, but also what we feel is very important for that person to also live and breathe what we believe in and what we stand for. So I do feel that having people to almost embody what you're trying to do, what you want to kind of portray, is a very valuable tool in that sense. We do have an amazing community built on there, and we get so much user generated content. And I do think that that's also what people are looking for, because obviously we can put out our campaigns in a certain way, but people also do want to see that in the wild kind of, okay, so what does it actually look like, or what does it actually feel like, or tell me what's your experience with this brand. And I do think that peer-to-peer talk and especially actually within cycling, that's really valuable. One other final thing that I do think also for us as a young brand is, what we also need is to get the feedback on the garments, right? Like, when we're developing our product, the best thing that we can receive is feedback to further develop the ranges,
So I just want to build on that, because I've heard stuff sometimes, sometimes people are, even us, when we're asking these questions, we're a little, tepid about, not trying to be rude or whatever, but you're encouraging that. If there's someone out there and they're just a user and they've got something and they think, oh, I noticed this on the bibs, it was doing this, or the jersey fit or whatever, if they send you a message, obviously in a nice way, you're encouraging that. You're encouraging not only your ambassadors, but your users, to your customers, to essentially help you out, be your market research, and it's not an insult if they think the bibs are a little short or a little long or whatever it is.
Exactly. I think maybe, Will, you can also comment on that a little bit. But again, obviously we set out certain things and we have a vision on certain things, but it's also very important to learn from that user experience. And I think, especially as a young brand, but even, if you're 10, 15, 20 years in the market, that's what also drives your brand further. And
no, it's super valuable. I mean, of course we get people writing up reviews, and we take that into account. And when we develop future products and stuff, we definitely take that into account. And as well, you get really positive feedback opposed to just negative feedback. And I think build upon that as well. In this day and age, most people just like to sort of complain rather than actually just reach out and actually compliment. So
we started a whole podcast about complaining, so we know.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we do with every one of our guests is we usually wrap up the interviews with what we call the rapid fire questions. So we're just going to shoot a bunch of rapid fire questions at you. There's usually 2 answers, yes or no. So let's start. So, okay, so you're based in the UK. So warm ale or cold beer?
Oh, without a doubt, cold beer.
same, cold beer. I'm Dutch, only cold beer.
Okay, great. Riding in the Yorkshire Dales or in the Cotswolds?
Well, I'm obviously going to give a very biased opinion, so maybe Inge, you answer that. But there's also a right and wrong answer to this question. So
I feel so much pressure. I would say Cotswolds.
you know what? The Cotswolds are beautiful.
But definitely the Yorkshire Dales for you.
But riding your bike in Yorkshire is stunning. When you get good weather, I don't think there's actually better riding out there, I have to say.
Tea or coffee on the stop during the ride?
Always coffee. Cold brew, iced, anything.
Do you have a recommendation for a coffee shop in London that anybody going there, i.e. me, who's going there shortly, should check out?
Well, there's one that's local to me called Mughead.
Mughead?
They're Canadian. There we go.
No, there you go.
Okay, boa or laces?
I've only ever ridden boa, so I can't even comment on laces.
I'm the same, but I like the laced shoes. I think they look cool.
Steel, carbon, or titanium?
All 3. If you've got 3 bikes, you probably should have one of each. My current favorite bike is a Fesca Scalatore, which is carbon, which is an absolute stunner. I'm gonna stick with carbon, I guess.
Carbon, yeah.
Okay, Inge, this one's for you. Stroop waffles or pannekuchen?
How can you make me choose?
You have to. It's rapid fire.
You definitely say
Okay.
both. I find Stroop waffles are a great mid-ride, pick me up, need a bit of sugar.
Yeah,
they
great.
go well into your back pocket. It's a fantastic ride snack.
A pannekuchen or stroopwafels, right? That's the one.
Yeah, pannekuchen.
Yeah.
So pannekuchens are like a Dutch pancake, basically. It's a little harder to put in your back pocket.
Can I say smoke and a pancake?
Smoking a pancake. Okay, good.
I'm joking. It's gonna be pancake though, I think.
One next question I'm going to ask, rapid fire question. Are we at peak earth tones right now? It seems like every brand has earth tones. If earth tones were a stock, should I short that right now, or what do we do?
If you haven't got any earth tones, who have we been eyeing?
Okay, final question. Not sure how familiar you are with our podcast, but we have our segment called Into the Canal, where we throw something that we don't like from the world of cycling into Montreal's Lachine Canal. Is there anything that, while you're here, we would like to give you the opportunity? Is there anything you would like to throw into Regent's Canal?
Inge, go for it.
No, it sounds like not the right thing to do. Can we put it in a big litter box or something?
Sure, it's true that you're a very environmentally conscious brand. So
Would you like to recycle anything from the cycling world?
Would you like to compost anything from the cycling world?
Gosh, Will, what do you think?
For me, it's going to be what we discussed at the start of the interview. It's going to be commuting in your cycling kit. That's in the compost.
It's a good one. Maybe a bit of elitism. Can it be thrown in the bin?
Okay, yeah.
I guess we're getting composted.
Yeah, I was just saying, crap. This podcast is off.
Look, Inge, this podcast is nothing if not for elitism. So we are going to compost ourselves today.
We straddle the line between elitism and satire. So if we stay on the satire side, like enough, like kind of, lean the body in or something, it balances out.
I think going back to what you were saying about people commuting in road gear, I think possibly to go step it even further, people wearing like aero helmets in their commuting gear. Like people like wearing like an evade just to go and get a pint of milk.
Imagine commuting on your TT bike in a skin suit. That would be next level.
But still having panniers. But still, because you're like, I got to go to the office. I got to bring my laptop. So you've got your aero, but your
imagine panniers? Like you roll into the office and then you got your TT bike. Well, Will Hurd and Inge Snook van der Hoek from Universal Colors, thank you so much for joining us on Cycling Fashion Week. It's been a true pleasure to interview you about Universal Colors. The brand will obviously be following whatever is next for the brand in the next few years. We're big fans. So we're happy to be able to call you friends of the podcast. And thank you again very much for your time today.
Our good friends, Will and Inge.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our next segment, Into the Canal, where we throw something we don't like from the world of cycling or cycling style into Montreal's Lachine Canal. Who wants to start this week? I'm going to go with Tony.
I noticed this and saw this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it's a perfect canal. Squeaky chains. I thought it's so irritating. What are you doing? And then recently I went on a ride with not like a perfectly clean chain, but a silent chain. Had been cleaned fairly recently. Probably needed one, upcoming soon, but oiled and stuff. And I went through a little bit of mud and a little bit of dirt on the route, and my chain got squeaky. So to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm not tossing this in the canal. Maybe those squeaky chains were just something rough from the ride, just something they couldn't avoid. They got caught in mud or dirt or rain or something. They do maintain their bike, which is a very important part. A clean bike is a fast bike. It's a beautiful bike. And then today, on my way home from grabbing an espresso at the local coffee shop, I was walking home, and a guy, as he pulled out of his driveway on a very nice Focus, just like sounded like a rat being killed. It was so squeaky, and I thought, well, this guy's got no excuse because he just left the house. He could have dripped some oil on there before he went. He could have pulled out of the driveway, noticed the squeak, turned around, and grabbed some oil. So I am throwing squeaky chains into the canal, but I do give a slight pass if the squeakiness happens over the ride because of the terrain you happen to be on, or you got stuck in the rain or something. And I hope that once you hear that, you go home, you clean your chain thoroughly, and you re-oil it. So there is a bit of a caveat that it's not fully in the canal. But if you're pulling out the driveway and someone can hear your chain from 3 or 4 blocks away, you turn around and you immediately get some oil and put it on there.
Sounds like you're not taking care of your bike in the canal, which I would agree with.
There's nothing that drives me nuts more than noisy bikes in general, whether it's the chain or anything else. I find it tends to happen more in gravel than in road as well, just by virtue of the terrain that you ride on. The noise on your bike will tend to happen a little bit more. And I remember when Warren, Tony, and I did this long gravel ride in Massachusetts, I was training for it before. And there was one day I was doing a 180 kilometer gravel ride, and at kilometer 30 of 180, my bottom bracket and my pedals started being noisy, and I had to deal with that for another 150 kilometers. Very annoying.
But I mean, I can listen, that's incredibly annoying. And sometimes I don't even want to ride when it's making noise. But like from another person's perspective, like I can understand sometimes the creak in the bottom bracket, something with the pedals, like it can show up very like unannounced, and it's not an obvious thing to you're not going to constantly every week re-grease your bottom bracket. Sometimes they're press fit, they're hard to pull out. So there's like a bit of a pass there, but like a clean chain that's oiled properly will never make noise. And it is such an easy thing to do. Like you can, whether you pull at the stand and you do the whole thing with the hose, or you get a park tool or a muck off chain cleaner that just makes the thing spotless. You can, I actually do it in my apartment with sort of a tarp down. Very easy, no excuse. So when I hear that, like really there's no excuse. Other noises are very annoying. I completely agree with you, Alex. I can't stand it, and it drives me nuts until I can figure it
out. Pedals squeaking.
Exactly, but there's a bit of a pass there because sometimes it shows up, sometimes it's hard to diagnose.
Yeah.
But a squeaky chain, obvious to diagnose, super easy to fix, or not even fix, to avoid in the first place. That is unacceptable.
Okay, I'm going to go next for the Canal this weekend. I actually have a Camélien this week, which is the opposite. So for our listeners who aren't yet familiar with what a Camélien is the opposite of a Canal. It's when you actually want to give congratulations or you want to highlight.
When you want to say chapeau to something.
Well, chapeau is a Canal, but
hats off to something.
Cheers.
Camélien is the opposite of a Canal, and it is to commend something or to highlight something that you like. And I'm actually going to do it this week. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in Toronto, Ontario for work, and I have a bike in Toronto that I keep there. And I went on a ride with these two guys after work. So 6:30 p.m. ride. Started in High Park, did one High Park loop because it was pretty busy, but then proceeded to do some West End hills. And it was actually a very pleasant ride. I was very down on Toronto cycling before. I assumed that all they were doing was riding in front of bank headquarters and car plants and industrial kind of office park, boring suburban stuff. And actually was very pleasant West End hills, nothing major, kind of, punchy little hills. There was even a cobbled climb, which is a Toronto berg. It was quite mythical, actually. And it is a monument of Toronto.
Sure.
And we did some loops there for about 2 hours or just under 2 hours. Very pleasant, good company, nice area, very well maintained gardens, good like flower scents, very proper, very Toronto. And I really enjoyed it. So I want to give an honorary Camélien to the city of Toronto for bike riding.
I knew you were going to mention the gardens because you kept commenting on them on the ride. So
I'm a garden guy. I like a good garden, and I have to say, on the Kingsway in Toronto, the people have some very nice gardens, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I wish we'd had a little more time to sort of head up Royal York a little more, and you could see some more nice gardens as well as some punchy climbs. But yeah, that's a good area. That's a good spot. I mean, you're not wrong about a lot of Toronto cycling being, behind buses and through the city or a car plant. But there's a few nice spots for some evening rides.
So that was my Camélien for this week. City of Toronto, West End cycling, better than I thought.
I'll go next. I actually am also going to do a Camélien this time. Doing a morning ride, you go to get coffee. If you're like me, you probably have a little treat of some kind of pastry. And what I'm going to Camélien this week is eating a beef patty after the morning ride, because we found this new coffee spot in Toronto.
No, we didn't.
Well, I'm not going to say where it is or or the name. It's got a great patio, good coffee. It's a much better alternative than a popular place that a lot of cyclists go, which doesn't have great coffee. There's lots of great coffee shops in Toronto, but there's just one very conveniently located one.
Warren, I was going to say good food, good coffee, nice. Does this happen to be Le Club? Like, does Le Club have a Toronto outpost?
I don't know. Maybe if they change the name to something else, it could. Maybe this is our version of Le Club. There's no cycling stuff there, but they have some like muffins and tarts and biscotti and all that normal stuff. But they also sell at breakfast when you show up at 7:30. They have beef patties and
Like the Jamaican patties,
yeah,
or
yeah. They're just that's a great after morning ride treat. Like maybe a little more substantial than you might need, but Tony and I did a pretty early. Our ride started at 5 a.m. and we did 80K before work. And after that, you're going to be a bit hungry. So, knocking back a beef patty or two. I'm pro beef patty after morning rides, and that is what I am giving a command to this week.
I don't want to admit it because of my just self-admitted Eurotrash fandom. I want to make it look like after every coffee ride I have an espresso and a biscotti.
Tony, it's a bit, just going to stop you right there. Singular is a biscotto. Biscotti is plural.
Well, maybe I have multiple, but okay, biscotto. Actually, I'm glad to know that. Sometimes it's, sometimes your pretension is nice. Anyways, yeah, honestly, it's the move. Like we did sort of this early, Warren, we did 85K just so everyone knows.
Oh, sorry. You don't have a computer. How did you know?
I may
creeped
or
on
may
Strava?
not have creeped on Strava. And so, anyways, yeah, so needing a little more of the salty, blah, 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 like it hit the spot. It was perfect.
Okay, next segment, it's the return of We Rate Your Bike for Free, where listeners send us pics of their bikes and we provide insights, commentary, always constructive. We try to help you make your bike look better overall. And as the name suggests, we rate your bike for free. So this one is coming to us via DM on our Instagram account at cyclingfashionweek. It is coming from Scott. That's all we know about Scott. We don't know where he's from. We don't know if it's Scott from the US or the UK or Scotland. We have no idea. He says, a little scared, but if you'd like to rate my bike for free, have at it. That's it. That's what Scott gives us as an information. And basically he sends a pic of his bike. It's from some sort of panoramic location. He seems to be on some sort, I wouldn't say a hilltop, but like some sort of belvedere where you can look at the landscape around. So the bike is just holding there by the railing. And I will describe the bike. We'll actually put up a picture of the bike on our Instagram at Cycling Fashion Week. It is a black Orbea road bike. It has Hunt carbon wheels. They look like they're about, I'm going to say 50 millimeters or 45 millimeters depth. It's got rim brakes. It has one of these new kind of integrated stems, or it's definitely the newer generation of stems where it's a little harder to see if they're slammed. Obviously there's no spacer there, but the height of the stem itself is a little bulky, so you can't really tell if it's slammed, but there's a good drop from the seat to the handlebars. So I would almost say that that's slammed. It looks like he's got a Shimano 105 crank on this. His drivetrain is on the small ring, actually. So he's on the small ring. The pedals aren't fully parallel to the wall. The valves on the wheels aren't necessarily aligned. But yeah, it's not matte black. It's a glossy black Orbea. The lettering on Orbea seems like it's beige or maybe kind of brass or golden. He's got two bidons on his bike. They are white with a blue cap. He's got a saddlebag on there. It's a little thick, the saddlebag, I would say. Could be a little thinner from my perspective. One thing I would say about your bike, Scott, is I find that the bidon choice for your bike isn't quite perfect. Like the royal blue cap on the bottles, I'm not sure matches the glossy black. And one last thing about Scott's bike before I turn it over to the guys to comment, the seat stays are dropped. Important to mention, it's got dropped seat stays, which I've made my views clear on that in the past. But overall, nice glossy black Orbea from Scott. What did you think about that, guys?
I only really have two comments. One, I don't think it's fully slammed. It looks like it is hard to tell with those, but I think he's got one spacer in there, but it's pretty close. The other thing I was going to say is, I look at a bike like this. It's got the Hunt wheels, which are nice aesthetically. It's all black. everything's black. It's murdered out, as they say. Scott, this is not a personal criticism. This is just where I find my own taste in bike designs going, is just the all black bike is just getting a bit boring to me.
But it's glossy though. It's not matte.
I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
I think there's a big difference between matte black and glossy black. I think glossy black is timeless. It's going to be nice in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years. Matte black is very 2015, I think, and it's over.
Yeah, sure. I just think in general, whether it's matte or glossy, I'm just getting a bit bored by all black bikes. But I agree, it is classic. The glossy black, it's timeless. He won't ever regret picking this color. But for me, it's just a little boring. But there's
the black is always a go-to, and this is the thing. Like, whenever you think of like, oh, I want something that stands out and is exciting, like you get it, you're talked about, it's so much fun, blah blah blah, and then a little while you look at it and you go, no, I don't really like this anymore. Whereas when you get something all black, like, you're right, it's more sort of subdued, but you look at it today, you look at it 5 years from now, you're stoked on it. It's still something you're excited about. But I'm not going to actually make a comment necessarily about like the way the bike looks. I think the boys made good comments on that. But I mean, the topic of the day have been rules or guidelines, and typically I love rules. I don't know why, but I like structure in life. So I like rules. I like guidance. I like having something to follow. But this is the case where I do not give a shit about the rules, and that is photos of your bike. I do not care about big ring, little ring at the back. I don't care about lined up valves. I just don't care. Like, I do want it to be drive side, just so I get like a better idea of what your group set is. I think the non-drive side is just kind of wasteful for information. But all the other stuff, all the rules of how your bike's supposed to look in your photo, and the crank at 90 degrees and all this stuff, I don't know why. I just don't give a shit. It just doesn't bother me.
I agree. I never even think about that when I'm taking a photo of my bike, unless I like the very first photo I took of my low when I think it was at Blacksmith, and I like leaned it against the wall and took a photo to like send to Tony and probably some other people. Like, the crank was like, at 3 o'clock or sorry, not 3 o'clock. It was at like one maybe. It was not symmetric at all and blah blah blah, but I didn't care because I was more excited about the bike itself. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm over that kind of thing. It's just photos of bikes.
Totally disagree. You guys getting soft. Dustin Klein has gotten into your heads. He owns real estate in your brains. Like, he said, he moved to Portland because it was cheaper real estate than San Francisco. Well, it seems like the cheapest real estate he could find was inside your brains, because he owns it now.
How long you been saving that joke, Alex?
I just came up with it. I want to uphold the rules. I believe in the Torah of cycling style and the rabbinical scholarship on the Torah, analyzing the rules, discussing them, reading between the lines. You guys are not representing Cycling Fashion Week well. I'm going to uphold the rules, and yeah, I'm going to knock Scott's photo on that basis. The rules are not being followed.
But what about his bike?
10 out of 10 because he didn't follow the rules for me. It's a 10 out of 10 for not following the rules.
Look, I'm going to give it. The Hunt wheels look nice. I feel like the Hunt wheels are very popular these days. Am I wrong? I think
they're relatively affordable for what you get. Like, I mean, no sort of carbon wheels are cheap, but I think for what you get, they're kind of on a better price point, and they're quite nice looking.
Good looking bike. I love a good glossy black bike. Disagree with Warren. I don't think you're going to regret it. And again, I'm very anti matte black, but I'm very pro glossy black, and this is a nice glossy black. I think he's gone for probably the best Orbea that you could get out there. I'm going to knock off some points though for a few reasons. Saddlebag, far too thick. The bottles, color doesn't match the bike. Like, drop seat stays, got to knock some points there. It's in the Torah. Finally, the stem. I hate these new stems. I think they look awful. They're bulky. They're just giant. Can't tell if they're slammed. We actually got on the Dustin Klein podcast where we were talking about the rules, slamming your stem. Someone on Dustin's account commented, slamming your stem? Are these people stupid? What if you have back problems? And yes, you should still slam your stem. Yes. That is the whole point. You are suffering for the look of your bike. So absolutely you should slam your stem. Yeah, nice bike. I like it. I did knock off some minor points for these issues there. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think that's fair.
I never said Scott would regret buying this bike. I actually said the opposite. It's classic, timeless. I just said I'm bored of black bikes. And for that reason, this is a 1 out of 10.
That's it for another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Thank you, Will Hurd, and thank you, Inge Snook van de Hoek from Universal Colors for a great interview. Check them out on Instagram, Universal Colors. Check out their website. They've got some great stuff coming up. And you can also find them at leclub.cc, which carries Universal Colors. Go to leclub.cc. They're your one-stop shop, your top destination for the coolest, the hottest, the best cycling brands. They've got, on top of Universal Colors, they've got MAP, Fingers Crossed, Quack, Albion, Sweet Protection, brand new online experience. They keep dropping new brands, new categories, and they also have the best coffee in the business. And if you're in Montreal, do drop by the coffee shop. They're doing group rides as well, which are really nice. So leclub.cc, they are your top online destination for cycling brands. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Tony. Please send us DMs, send us emails. DMs is on our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week. And if you want to send us a bike to review like we did today, giving you constructive criticism on your bike, you can do so at cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com. Thank you very much, everyone. We will be back in a couple of weeks with more Cycling Fashion Week. Take care.
This is a reminder to slam your stem.